Mostly this is talking about humor as rhetoric. So you can kind of think of it like that. There's been some recent design things that have come out about humor as a way to come up with ideas and ideate for concepts. And this is more of using it as an argument for specifically social issues that are really hard to communicate most of the time. So I'll start by asking right off the bat, because when I first started doing this project, everyone was just kind of like, how are you going to dissect humor? You're never going to laugh again. So that was a really actually tough thing to think about. So I'm gonna ask, what do you guys personally feel humor is, and can it be taught or dissected and still, be effective?
I think humor broadly is just anything that's surprising. Usually something that is really honest or something that's really absurd that just catches you off guard. It's tough to really sum up why something makes you laugh, but I feel like just really something that kind of catches you off guard is really what does it. As for if it can be taught, I don't think if you're an unfunny person with a terrible sense of humor, you can take a class or read a book and suddenly be hilarious. But I do think that if you're a naturally funny person, to study what has worked before and kind of learn some of the rules of how different structures of comedy work, be it sketch writing or improv or stand-up, I think that it can make a funny person funnier, or at least allow them to hone their skills into something productive, I guess. If they want to be a professional comedian, it does help to kind of learn about what came before, what structures have worked. Like the UCB system, I feel like a lot that you learn in learning about how to do improv can really be translated to pretty much any area of comedy and any area of being creative. It's basically just about trusting your subconscious and agreement and heightening, which are really basic things that can be applied to a lot of different aspects of both comedy and writing in general or filmmaking, anything like that.
I agree with Adam, especially that you can't take an unfunny person and just make them funny. Funnier is possible, and a lot of practice. I mean, every year I think I'm really funny until the next year happens, and I look back at the previous year and realize I wasn't that funny. And it's sort of like the goals, you're constantly hopefully raising the bar and not actually getting worse. But there is the discipline helps you realize that progress is possible. As far as what humor is, I think it's in part a very unique voice, a strong perspective that has a way, as most art does, of revealing some truth. Like the best joke, your response is often, "Oh, that's so true," but it's a way of saying that truth that is not obvious, that goes a little sideways around it, and in the process entertains you, makes you smile, makes you think in a little different way. I got a really quick example. We have this Onion, South by special edition, and the top story is 48-hour internet outage plunges nation into productivity. It's so true.
So, do you think your platforms? I mean, I know that some of the technology that you're using. Obviously, Twitter wasn't around like 10 years ago, and who knows what will happen 10 years from now. But I mean, why do you think that the platforms are There's three of you sitting here who have like a lot in common. Like, why do you think that all happened kind of at one point?
Well, I think just the basic thing of the internet making it easier for anybody to create something has made it a lot harder to filter what is good. We're used to having, it used to be just like, there are 3 TV networks and they pick out the funny shows that we're gonna watch and that is what's funny, or there's a half dozen major comedy movies that are out this year and those are the funny things. But now with YouTube, with Twitter, with all of this stuff, it's much more overwhelming. So I feel like having something that filters or acts as an authoritative voice is needed, because otherwise if you're a comedy fan, you'll either just be like, okay, well, I give up, I'm just going to watch these things I'm already familiar with, and it's too much work to try new things.
If you talk about the role of design in all of this, I selected a few examples, but The Onion works because it looks like an actual news organization. The videos especially, Craig Newmark is on the record as saying it's the highest quality news production in the world right now, is the Onion News Network. And whenever I hear things like that, it's very exciting and depressing at the same time. Because that shouldn't be true. That's one of those things you're like, we're winning in a bad way. But what you're looking at here is an issue of our 1783 edition, which every other year or so we do a special edition, and we dug this up. And the fonts are right, the S's look like F's. We got a lot of commentary from historic history departments, especially US history departments at universities, who wrote us in saying this is the greatest historical reenactment thing we've ever seen. It's so accurate, not just the news, but the fonts, the color of the paper. And there's a listing of Ben Franklin's inventions on the front page, which includes the manual vaginal stimulation stick, math, right? And the US patent, which he then patented, which was pretty genius. But that was all less funny if you just see it in a plain text file, right? And as it's being passed around in Google Docs and emails inside the company, it's funny, but then you see it and the designers bring that to life. Without their layer and that context, again, Twitter's a context, stage is a context, the visual design of this makes it so much more real and so much more entertaining and interesting and smart.
That's, speaking about design, I feel like that's something that I thought about. I actually am a graphic designer, and before I got into comedy, I was a print designer. And so I was very particular about how my website was going to look, and I very deliberately made it pretty pared down and kind of dull, frankly. A lot of have been some Twitter aggregators that just go and follow name comedians. They don't do any curating. They don't read the feeds. They just go, oh, Gilbert Gottfried, put him on the list. But they all went with this design that's very cliche comedy, rubber chicken, chattering teeth, brick wall. And I was like, I will not go that way. I mean, I wanted exactly. I wanted it to be about the reading and not kind of force your eye into going, oh, this is going to be funny.